Hi there. Welcome back to the Alberta Skylights YouTube channel. My name's Trevor and I'm here with Ryan. And Ryan's the owner, operator, and chief of Alberta Skylights. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about why skylights always leak. Or do they? Okay, Ryan, let's jump into it. So you were telling me an experience that you had just the other day. You were on social media and somebody in a forum somewhere was saying that skylights always leak.
Yep, I hear it all the time. Skylights always leak all the time.
Is that true?
No, it's not.
All right. What do you mean it's not true?
So we deal with a lot of skylights pretty much day in and day out. And people are calling us because they have problems. Question is it the skylight that's actually leaking? In my experience, it's actually pretty rare for a properly installed skylight to leak. What we see most common is just terrible installation practices. People have had a skylight, they get the roof replaced, the roofers look at it and say, oh yeah, the skylight's fine, it'll be okay. Then they go and try and put the roof together, and all of a sudden there's problems. And who comes up with the idea, oh, skylights always leak? The roofing contractor who doesn't want to go back and fix the skylight. That's what we see.
Gotcha. So roofing guy comes in, replaces roof, and doesn't do anything to deal with the issues that are surrounding the skylight.
Yep.
So we're talking underlayment, flashing, shingle, putting the shingles back in place properly around the skylight, all those types of things. So what kinds of things do you do? So if that is a scenario, how much do you have to, peel back in order to fix that problem?
Well, typically when we take and replace a skylight or try and fix a skylight, it's already too late for the skylight to be saved. The significant majority of the work that we end up doing when somebody calls for a skylight problem is a skylight that's 20 plus years old already.
Oh, okay.
Life expectancy on a skylight, probably about 15 to 20 years. Same as an average roof.
Okay.
So you're getting your roof replaced, that's the ideal time to get your skylight replaced. If you don't, you're just asking for problems. When we come in after the fact, what we end up doing is we take the skylight off, we take all the shingles out around the skylight, we take all of the flashings out, we strip it down to bare wood so we know exactly what we're dealing with. We waterproof the whole thing, new flashings, and then a new skylight, put it back together. That's the end of the problem.
Okay. Now, what have you done? What have you seen in maybe some worst case scenarios and some that was just a minor problem? So what's a worst case scenario that you've seen regarding a leaking skylight?
Well, leaking skylight, let's define leak before we talk about what a leak is.
Sure.
In my view, a leak is water that comes from outside to the inside. That would be a leak in its purest definition. Skylights also prone to condensation if not installed properly. But that in and of itself is not a leak. That's moisture formed inside the building.
Okay.
So let's go back to just the leaking aspect of it. When I see skylights that leak, it usually comes down to a couple of pretty common things. First of all, the flashings are falling apart. They should have been replaced 15 years ago. They're rusted through. We had one this week where homeowner had a brand new roof installed, everything was nice and done. A year or so later, it starts leaking. The roofing contractor, skylights always leak. We get there and the flashing was literally rusted right through. The skylight itself wasn't leaking, it was the flashings. Roofing contractors will take and they'll just try and tuck their membranes up as close as they can. It doesn't always work. The other thing that we see for skylights that are actually leaking is acrylic skylights are prone to cracking over time. So you end up with UV beats down on them, they dry up, they crack. All of a sudden now you're getting water between the two panes. That's an actual skylight leak. Those are the most common things that we'll see with that. As far as moisture coming in through condensation, back to acrylic, fairly inefficient to begin with. Whenever you start getting a bunch of moisture building up in there, that's going to appear as a leak because it comes from the top. But it's not, it's moisture building up inside. We had one 2 weeks ago that we did where homeowner, once again, was selling his house, had the whole roof replaced, and the inspector picked up on these skylights aren't right, something's off, take a look. And they were full of water and condensation.
Oh, wow.
So we get up in there to take a look, and the roofing contractors actually replaced all the flashings. They did a nice job as far as the flashing work did, but they didn't put the skylights back on. They over-tightened them, twisted the frames, and split the skylights. They didn't know how to put the skylights back on. So now we ended up having to rip it all apart and redo it anyways.
Oh, man.
So that's kind of where you're going to get your leaks, cracked skylights, improper flashings.
Now, let's talk about, you were talking about acrylic, right? So these acrylic ones, basically like the plasticky bubble looking ones, right?
That's right, yeah.
Let's talk about the ones that you install, which are by Velux.
That's right.
Right? Velux in Canada. And, the difference in construction materials, do they have the same types of problems, where condensation builds up on them, cold surface, hot, warm air, like, do we still get the same problems?
No, not in the same aspect of it. So the old acrylic skylights, they were made in two parts. The base was made out of aluminum, and it would go from the outside through to the inside of the building, and then they put another dome on top, and it gets kind of clamped onto the top of it. They're a two-part system. That leads to a lot of heat transfer in that aluminum frame, goes through, and then you end up with a ton of frost and condensation building up in there. That's a pretty big problem with it. Another thing to keep in mind, the acrylic skylights, they cannot be sealed together. The acrylic, the two domes are different sizes, so they have to be able to move independently, otherwise they'll split.
Okay.
So they're held together with a butyl caulk. As that gets old, it gets dry. All of a sudden, the skylights can't move independently, and they crack.
Right.
The skylights that we use are actually made out of glass. They're a way better system. Dual pane, have minimum, argon filled, triple LOE coated. You cannot use argon glass in an acrylic system because you can't seal them together.
Right.
Whereas with the glass, you can. The glass that we use is awfully, quite a bit stronger, laminated on the outside, tempered on the inside. Sorry, I got that backwards. Laminated on the inside, tempered on the outside. They're actually held together with structural glazing, so it's a lot stronger, like what you get on a high-rise window.
Okay.
And that's what makes them a lot stronger in that regard. The benefits of having that glass in there is it's a lot quieter. The argon gas in there is going to make it so that it's a lot more insulative. You don't end up with anywhere near the heat transfer because ours sit over top of the curb. It's one piece sealed, where instead of the two pieces with the thermal bridge in between them, they're just a way better system all in all.
Right. So people who are experiencing issues with their skylights, they should definitely look at, replacing them. If it's that time for getting your roof replaced, you should get your skylights done. And what are some other issues that we find with skylights that people say that skylights always leak? What are some of the other problems?
Well, like I say, it usually comes down to improper installation or condensation.
Okay.
So if your humidity in your house is 55%, you're going to have problems no matter what system you've got in there. For every 10 degrees Celsius the temperature drops, relative humidity doubles. So if you start with a 40% humidity in your home and it's plus 20 Celsius and it's minus 30 outside, you're going 40, 80, 160, 320, and it just skyrockets right through there. Having an acrylic skylight, you do not have a lot of protection from the cold coming in. You might as well just have an umbrella over the big hole there for as much value as they have. The glass actually prevents a lot of that heat transfer to get through. So it helps minimize those doublings, right?
Okay.
Being more energy efficient. When you walk underneath your skylight, do you get a great big chill that goes through your spine from all the cold air coming down? That's a problem. You shouldn't really be getting a lot of that. It should be the same as any other windows on your home. I mean, I hate to say it, but the most energy efficient skylight is no skylight. If you're going to have
right, just a roof.
Right. If you're going to have a skylight, though, and you want that light in there, you might as well go with something that's going to be energy efficient. Dual pane, triple LOE coated, argon filled.
Yeah. So, it's worth it getting a better product. I mean, and thinking about it, when skylights first were all the rage, and back in the, was probably the 80s when there was the most of them were put in and they were incorporated into design. There's basically one type. Really, they didn't have the newer technology, like the glazing of the triple E.
Absolutely.
Glazing and all that kind of stuff.
Technology makes sense.
So now it's time to upgrade that technology. So rather than, staying back in the 1970s and wanting a big bubble, on your house, getting something that's glass, actually you can clean it better. It probably stays cleaner longer because of the coatings on it.
It's got the coatings.
Rejects the UV from coming into the house, so you're not getting as much heat coming in from that, and not the cold transfer as well.
Absolutely.
So it just makes sense that if you have a skylight, okay, let's just say you have one, that you should probably look at upgrading it and updating that technology. It's like, going from a rotary phone to a cell phone or a smartphone, right? So, I mean, almost nobody, I'm not going to say nobody, but let's say almost nobody has a rotary phone anymore, right? There might be one or two holdouts. So going from rotary phone to smartphone, kind of idea, right?
Yeah, I just get with the times, right? My daughter, for her first vehicle, I bought her an old 84 Chevette. It was just a project for her and I to play with.
Sure.
There's way better vehicles out there. Sure, the 84 Chevette still drives around, but there's way better stuff out there. It was just a fun project to play with, right?
Right.
So we actually did a project about 2 years ago. The lady had an addition built off her kitchen a handful of years prior, and it was just always dark in there because well, you put this big addition on the back and just not a lot of light.
Right.
So she wanted us to come and put skylights in there, and it's all over our website. It's nice big clusters of skylights. And she was also getting an energy audit done, and the auditor told her, "You're crazy. Those skylights are in a leak. They're going to be problems." Blah blah blah. She wanted the light more than anything. So we went through and we did all of our work. We insulated the curbs. We used a deck mounted skylight, but we insulated everything. All the skylight wells used cellulose high density, really nice product in there. And she got her energy audit done after the fact. And the auditor was blown away. He couldn't find any heat loss through them at all. So
Wild.
they're just, the technology is way better than it ever was. I mean, like I say, an 84 Chevette's still going to get you there, but there's better things out there, right?
Sure, you could use a scooter too if you really wanted to.
Unless you're in Toronto, they don't let them anymore.
But no, that's great. I think, that's amazing, and that's a good analogy that people can use to figure out, okay, I think it's time to upgrade. I think it's time to change this. There's better things out there. And the guy to talk to is Ryan here from Alberta Skylights. In the Edmonton area, Edmonton surrounding areas, if you need skylight work, this is the company to call. Call Ryan and they can help you with a skylight replacement almost any time of year. When it's really cold out, it's kind of nasty and not very fun. You're going to lose some heat, but he can at least give you an idea of what you can do. Then there's sun tunnel stuff that you guys do as well.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about sun tunnels on another video. And that's it for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. And thanks, Ryan, for sharing your valuable insight.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.